If you ever wondered what kind of heart Marilyn Monroe truly had, beyond the glamour, beyond the spotlight, beyond the legend, then you've come to the right story. Because this is the night Marilyn Monroe quietly slipped away from Hollywood, left the cameras and fame behind, and visited a Kung fan whose life was fading faster than anyone expected. No reporters, no publicity, no one watching. Just a woman who understood pain, comforting someone who needed her more than the world ever knew. And this hidden act of kindness would forever change the lives of everyone involved. It began in 1960 at the height of Marilyn's fame. She was filming one of the most demanding roles of her career, juggling studio pressure, interviews, and the constant weight of being the most recognizable face in America. Her days were long, her nights were restless, and every moment in between was filled with expectations she never asked for. People adored her, but they didn't see her. They loved the icon, not the woman. One afternoon, between takes, Marilyn sat alone in her dressing room. She looked at her reflection. Tired eyes, soft vulnerability, the faint shadow of sadness she knew too well, and wondered if anyone would ever understand what it cost her to keep going. It was then that her assistant knocked gently on the door. "Marilyn, there's something you should read." It was a letter. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. Inside were the words of a 12-year-old girl named Lily Turner, who'd been diagnosed with late-stage leukemia. Lily wrote about how much she admired Marilyn, not for her beauty or fame, but for her strength, her resilience, her bravery. She wrote that whenever she felt scared, she watched Marilyn's movies because her smile made the world seem less frightening. And at the end of the letter, a single sentence stood out. "My biggest wish is to meet you before I go to heaven." Marilyn read that line over and over. Her chest tightened. She closed the letter slowly, pressing it against her heart. She whispered, "Oh, honey, why does the world hurt the gentle ones the most?" Her assistant explained that Lily's parents had contacted the studio, hoping Marilyn might send a short message or a signed photograph. The studio, overwhelmed with scheduling demands, had politely declined. There was no time, too many commitments, too much press, too much Hollywood. But Marilyn wasn't Hollywood, not really. Beneath everything, she had always been Norma Jean, the little girl who grew up in orphanages, who knew fear intimately, who understood what it felt like to be alone in the world. And so without hesitation, she said, "Tell them I'm coming." Her assistant blinked. "Marilyn, the studio can wait," she said firmly. "A little girl shouldn't have to wait for kindness." That evening, after filming wrapped, Marilyn slipped out a side door wearing a simple coat and a scarf covering her hair. No glamorous dresses, no bodyguards, no flashing lights. She left as quietly as a shadow. The Turner family lived in a modest home on the outskirts of the city. When Marilyn arrived, she didn't knock immediately. She stood there for a moment, gathering herself, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. Then she exhaled softly and knocked. Lily's mother opened the door. When she saw Marilyn standing there, humble, gentle, she covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Miss Monroe, I can't believe you're here." Marilyn gave a warm smile. "Please, call me Marilyn. I'm here to see Lily." They led her into a small bedroom where Lily lay in bed, frail and pale, her body weak but her spirit still shining faintly in her eyes. When she saw Marilyn, she froze, as if afraid the moment might disappear if she blinked. Marilyn stepped forward slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hi, sweetheart." Lily's eyes filled with tears. You came for me?" Marilyn sat gently beside her, taking Lily's small hand into her own. Of course I came. You asked, and I heard you. Lily began to cry softly. I didn't think you'd have time. Marilyn brushed a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. I always have time for brave girls. For the next hour, an hour that felt suspended in time, Marilyn talked to her. Not as a movie star, but as a friend. They talked about movies, about dreams, about the stars Lily loved to look at from her window. Lily asked Marilyn how she kept smiling through hard days. Marilyn paused, thinking deeply. I think, she said carefully, we smile so other people won't worry. But the truth is, sometimes the strongest thing we can do is let someone see our sadness too. Lily nodded, understanding in a way only someone who had faced death could. As Marilyn spoke, Lily's father quietly stepped outside, overwhelmed with emotion. He had spent months trying to keep hope alive for his daughter. Seeing Marilyn there, giving Lily the joy she had long prayed for, felt like a miracle. At one point, Lily asked, Marilyn, are you afraid of anything? Marilyn hesitated. She could lie. She could pretend she was unshakable, but Lily deserved the truth. Yes, she said softly. I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of not being enough. And sometimes, I'm afraid of the dark. Lily squeezed her hand. Me too. And just like that, two souls, one fading, one struggling, held each other in a moment of shared vulnerability. Marilyn told her stories from film sets, funny moments, awkward bloopers that made Lily laugh until she coughed, then laughed again. She even performed a tiny, silly song Lily loved from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, complete with exaggerated expressions. Lily giggled uncontrollably, a sound her parents hadn't heard in months. It didn't feel like a celebrity visiting a fan. It felt like a big sister comforting a little one. Eventually, Lily grew tired, her breathing shallow. Her mother whispered, "She needs rest." Marilyn nodded and leaned close to Lily's ear. "Before I go, I want to tell you something." Lily looked at her with half-closed eyes. "You are braver than anyone I've ever met," Marilyn said. "And if heaven is anything like people say, I think they'll be lucky to have you." A tiny tear escaped Lily's eye. "Will you remember me?" Marilyn swallowed hard. "I will remember you for the rest of my life." She gently kissed Lily's forehead, stood up slowly, and walked toward the door. But just as she reached for the handle, Lily whispered, barely audible, "Marilyn, thank you for not making me feel small." Marilyn closed her eyes, overcome. She turned back and whispered, "You made me feel big." When Marilyn stepped outside, she sat down on the porch steps, her body trembling with emotion. Lily's father sat beside her silently. After a moment, he said, "I don't know how to thank you." Marilyn shook her head. "Don't thank me. She gave me more than I gave her." "Why did you come?" he asked quietly. Marilyn looked up at the stars. "Because when I was her age, no one ever came for me." The father's eyes welled with tears. Marilyn continued, voice breaking, "If I can be the person I needed when I was little, then none of this is wasted." She wiped her eyes, gathered herself, and walked down the steps into the night. 3 days later, Lily passed away peacefully. Her parents told the press nothing. They respected Marilyn's wish. But inside Lily's hand they found a note, a tiny piece of paper torn from Marilyn's notebook. On it, Marilyn had written, "You are loved, you are enough, you matter." That note stayed with Lily until the very end. Years later, Lily's mother mailed a copy of it to Marilyn, but Marilyn never spoke publicly of that night. She didn't want credit. She didn't want fame. She didn't want the world to applaud her. She did it because she understood pain. She did it because she understood loneliness. She did it because kindness to her was not a performance. It was who she truly was. Behind the spotlight, behind the camera flashes, behind the world's expectations. Marilyn Monroe lived quietly, humbly, with a heart that never stopped reaching out. And sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones she never told. If you want to discover more hidden truths about Marilyn Monroe, the stories that show the woman behind the legend, subscribe to Hidden Marilyn. The journey continues.